Welcome to Deep Work Out Loud, the thinking that fuels our life, our work, and our leadership. I'm Julie Harris Oliver. This is the podcast where I sit with another professional coach and we do some work around a single concept, something we're thinking about, something we love, something we're obsessed about, something we're just mulling over. And if we're really lucky while we're talking about it, we might demonstrate what it might be to sit with a coach and think and work with a coach. But we'll see how this goes. It's still an experiment. And with any luck, you'll leave with something that you can use in your life or your work or both. So today I'm here with Laura London. Laura is a leadership strategist with decades of experience facilitating individual and organizational transformation. She is the founder and CEO of Calocedrus Partners, a nature-inspired leadership consulting and coaching firm. A former McKinsey and Company leader, she brings rigor, heart, and clarity to every engagement. Raised in New York and now rooted in California, she blends directness with warmth to help ambitious companies and leaders reimagine leadership in the age of AI, working in person, virtually, and in nature at her private retreat property, Cedar Camp and Sanctuary. Welcome.
Thank you, Julie. It's so good to be here with you.
Before we dig in, what was your journey to becoming a coach?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for asking that question. So I have always been fascinated by change, human development, and the world of work. And I can remember being a kid. I started working very early. I think you get your working papers at like 14 or something. And I remember looking around and thinking, these adults spend so much time at work. How cool would that be if I can make it a little bit better? And that's really,
At 14, you were thinking this.
because I started working and I just looked around and everyone seemed so stressed. And I just remember thinking, you people spend so much time at work. Why isn't it better? And that's really been the theme of my career. So I went to the School of Industrial Labor Relations. I kind of always knew that I wanted to focus on the world of work. And so my journey eventually led me to, as you said, McKinsey. And I was part of the people and organizational performance practice. And that was really a treat because I got to work in all the different strategic people-related areas. But it was McKinsey, of course, so it had measurements and very clear outcomes and very tight work plans and all the things that make performance thrive. And then I got an opportunity because when I was looking around at the work we were doing, it was great work. And I started to really see that no matter what we did, if the leaders weren't modeling it, if the teams weren't sharing it, and if the systems weren't reinforcing it, nothing worked. And so we would do these amazing studies. We would do great work. And then 2 months later, it was like we were never even there. And so when I got an opportunity to run McKinsey's Leadership Academy, I jumped on it. I get P&L responsibility. This is an amazing, I learned more about leadership. And it was wonderful. And at the same time, it made me want to understand the concept of leadership deeper. And so I was able to join the leadership practice. And that's when I got introduced to coaching. And I immediately fell in love. It was like love at first sight.
Like, that's it.
And I just remember seeing some of these amazing executive coaches and thinking, who are these magical people? They were so grounded. They were so calming. And that was so different than what I was used to. And I just thought, wow, I want to be one of them. I want to learn more about this executive coaching thing. I want to be able to incorporate coaching and consulting. And so in 2024, I took the leap and opened my own practice. And it's been wonderful to incorporate both coaching and consulting in the leadership area. And so that's been my journey. And I feel really grateful that I get to focus on this and do this every day.
Yeah, what a gift and a joy. Okay, what do you want to talk about today?
So I thought it would be very fun, in particular, to talk about this topic with you. It's a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and the topic is forest therapy.
A topic that is far and away from my heart. I'm going to play the part of the skeptic in this conversation.
And I think that's
with an open heart and open mind.
And that's why I think it's such a beautiful conversation to have with you, right? The richness that we can bring to this.
Mm-hmm.
Forest therapy is a practice that I came across over the last couple of years. So it's pretty new in my life, and it has made such a huge difference in my life. And so it's a topic that I feel called to talk about and to share more about. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about it with you. So
Yeah.
forest therapy, maybe we start with what it is, because I think it's
Well, yeah, that was my first question.
it is
What is
it
it?
is amazing that in the Western world, I still would say 9 out of 10 times when I ask someone if they are familiar with forest therapy, their answer is, no. It is growing much faster outside of the Western world, and it really has roots outside of the Western world, but it is growing here. So forest therapy is a heavily researched mindfulness practice, and it is just simply connecting with the natural world, so connecting with nature using all 5 senses. So it is being in nature. It could be any form. It could be a forest, of course, forest therapy, but it can also be a beach. It could be a park. It could just be your backyard. But it is connecting with nature and really tuning in to, what do I see? What do I hear? What can I feel? What can I touch? What can I smell? And what can I taste? And the reason why this is so, so powerful is because as humans, we take information in through our senses, whether we realize it or not, right? We take in
Mm-hmm.
information through our senses and we make sense of the world. And if our nervous system perceives that we are not safe, we get a dysregulated nervous system. So whether we realize it or not,
Mm-hmm.
our ability to regulate how we take in information through our senses is actually the key to having a regulated nervous system. And this is, I think, one of the most important things right now in the age of AI, where we are completely overwhelmed with information. And there's this growing tension, right? We have the better access to information and technology than we've ever had before. And at the same time, research shows we're more disconnected. We have less meaning. We have less belonging than we've ever had before.
If I can throw in, also the news cycle. We are so bombarded and so dysregulated and trying to work and do things when everything around us feels like it's bananas. So this feels so timely and
So we have
applicable.
all this
Continue.
noise. And our first line of defense as humans, when we have all this overwhelm, is our senses and how we bring in information. So by being able to strengthen our sensory awareness, we are actually calming and regulating our nervous system. So I truly believe that forest therapy in particular is one of the best ways we have right now to regulate our nervous systems so that we can show up with more clarity, with more confidence. We can make better decisions. We can have healthier relationships, and we can act more effectively in the world. And Julie, I'll tell you, this is a topic that is actually quite personal for me.
Why?
So, grew up in a privileged household in so many ways. And from the outside, I probably looked super confident. And I was. I did well in school. I had a lot of friends. I went to a top university. I worked at top companies, but I felt really fragile inside. My nervous system
Mm.
was a wreck. And I did everything I could throughout my life to try to regulate my nervous system. I didn't have that language. I didn't quite understand that that's what I was seeking.
You were thinking, I just need to feel
Exactly.
better.
But throughout my life,
Yeah.
it was a quest to regulate my nervous system. And the result of not feeling confident in my own body, even though outwardly I appeared confident and I looked confident, was I didn't really trust myself. I felt fragile. And so I was very susceptible to whatever system I was working in. And so McKinsey for me was actually the perfect place because there is such a clear way, they train you in such a clear way of being and acting, right? There's a leadership model.
Mm.
And I thought, this is great. This is how I want to show up. And so
I have rules. I can do
I
this.
took on the way they wanted me to lead. And I was highly effective, but I wasn't excellent. And I knew inside my heart that I wasn't showing up authentically every day. And when I first started to experience forest therapy, I was with you. When I first
Hmm.
experienced it, it was like for the first time, I could feel my body relax and I could feel my heart open and I felt creative again. It was like an immediate reset for
Mm.
me. And I didn't understand why. And I knew I wanted to explore it and get certified in it because I was curious what is happening? Why do I feel so much relief and so much joy? And it actually really for me clicked not too long ago when my son was diagnosed with something called sensory processing disorder. So SPD. SPD is actually quite common, but it goes very largely diagnosed. Most people will never know that they have SPD. And what I learned through having to learn strategies to help my son is if we can't regulate our nervous system and we can't regulate how we take in information through our senses, we can't feel safe. The world feels like a dangerous place. And we very easily get either overstimulated or understimulated, right? We're very quickly bored or we're very quickly reactive. That is all a function
Mhm.
of our nervous system. And what looks like challenging behavior in a child or even an adult is usually the sign of a dysregulated nervous system. And learning that and having to start to learn ways to help my son strengthen his nervous system really was an amazing gift for our family because it helped us build empathy and it also helped us realize the power of simply connecting in the natural world to our senses. And so, my favorite thing now to do with my son is go for some type of a nature walk. We could just be going down the block. We could be going for a hike, whatever it is when we're outside. We'll just simply say, let's look around. What do we see? And what started as
Mm.
challenging with him, naming, we would say, let's just name 5 things we see. That's the easy one. You start with sight because we see so much.
Yeah.
And then we say, okay, let's name 4 things we can feel. At first, that felt very challenging for him. And then he started to warm up. We do it together. Okay, mommy feels the sunlight. Mommy feels the cold air on her skin. All right. And then he said, oh, okay, I'm going to get into this. So he said, I can feel the tree. I feel the tree. I said, or he would pick up a rock. I feel the rock. Touch it, right? I feel the smoothness of the grass. Right. So he starts to get into it. Okay. So now let's name 3 things that we can smell. Another one that at first was really hard. It's like, I don't smell anything, mama. Okay, well, let's go closer to the tree. What do we smell? Right? Oh, I can smell the tree. Right? And so just tuning in. And then okay, let's name 2 things we can hear. I can hear birds. I can hear birds, right? Oh, I hear it down there. What's that I hear? And then we get to taste. And taste is always a funny one, right? Because it's like, what can I taste? But if you really start to tune in, maybe you can taste the cold air, or maybe you can taste the pine. I think what is so interesting about the practice of forest therapy is how simple it really is and how accessible
For sure.
it really is. And I think at first it's almost like, "Well, that's it? So I just have to be out in some form of nature, connecting with my senses? Like that can't be it, right?" Be-
Like outside when we used to just roam wild in the streets and everybody seemed a bit more
right.
grounded.
Right. And that's why the beauty of how much research is behind this form of therapy is why it's so compelling and why it's growing so fast, right? Health and wellness experts are estimating it's about 30 to 40 years behind yoga as a practice because of its accessibility for everyone. And like yoga, right? Yoga is something that you can practice by yourself it's also something you can practice in a group. And so forest therapy is the overall term for just simply connecting with nature using your senses. There's also Shinrin-yoku, which is the Japanese practice of forest bathing. And so forest bathing, I think in some ways maybe has started catching on. It seems like people are maybe hearing about this. There's been a lot of news lately around the benefits of forest bathing. And forest bathing is just simply going through a guided walk with a certified forest therapy guide. So that is the certification that I went through. And we actually learned the Japanese practice of forest bathing. And just like yoga,
That sounds like a bigger deal.
it's like going to a yoga class, right? You go to a yoga class to what? To maybe be in community, to learn the moves, to be with somebody, to look at your form, to make sure you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same idea with the practice of forest bathing. And so when you go on a guided walk, every walk, just like every yoga class, is going to feel different because the guide is going to bring their own knowledge to it, right? Their own presence to it, their own way of doing it. But it always follows a certain flow. And there are some core principles in it, such as move slower, mindful walking, mindful movement. Use nature as the guide, not in the background. And so, Julie, directly answer your point there. We grow up playing in nature. We're used to being in nature. But if we're really honest, nature is in the background, right? So I live in Tahoe. And before I really started learning about forest therapy, I thought, I'm always in nature. I'm doing forest therapy. But I wasn't because it's a small but very meaningful difference. When you're moving through nature and it's the background versus when you are focused on being with nature, right? So when we practice forest therapy, we are with nature, right? We are tuning in to nature rather than just moving through it as the background. And that small difference is actually the big difference. And that's where it becomes hard for people.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it sounds so simple, the interesting part is for those of us that move really fast through life, slowing down is actually one of the hardest things we can do. And I can't see it. Three things that I smell. I don't smell anything. I don't smell it.
You want me to sit outside with nothing in my ears and not looking at anything and sit there? What? You want me to do what? That at first brush, that sounds like agony. That's going to be hard.
And so it's that simplicity that is so beautiful about the practice and also what makes it so powerful.
I'm gonna play the part of the skeptic in this conversation, but I'm very open to hear what you have to say about it.
The skeptic, how are you going to be the skeptic?
Well, I can feel already I'm a little bit like, okay. My experience in nature, and I grew up in Seattle, in Washington State, where we were surrounded and everyone was going kayaking and skiing and hiking and all these things. It was never quite my jam. But then also when I have had experiences going out in nature, hiking, whatever, my experience has been nature will try to kill you at every turn and it doesn't care. And also, in the time I was growing up, there were a lot of serial killers in the woods in Washington and Oregon. So I'm like, well, that's where the serial killers live. And if you go out there, if the serial killer doesn't get you, nature itself will try to kill you. So it's interesting. Like we went on this, I guess you call it forest bathing, walk together when you had this really opening experience. And I was really grumpy about the whole thing because I had just had this experience where nature tried to kill me.
So
my first thought is, oh, I don't trust it. And that seems scary.
and the statement of nature will try to kill you, that is quite a big, juicy one. So can you say a little bit more about that?
Maybe it's more fair to nature to say, it will allow you to die and not try to save you. For example, I had this experience a couple years ago where I was taking a walk on a beach with my husband, and then it was a pebbly beach, and then the rocks got a little bigger, and then the rocks got huge, and they were boulders, and we were bouldering, and the tide was coming in, and I just took one wrong step on a rock. My foot slipped out from underneath me. I was on my face. My wrist was broken. And it wasn't like I stumbled. I took a step and I was down. And the tide was coming in. There was no more beach. There was no way out. And if we didn't have modern technology, I was thinking, am I going to have to be airbagged out of here? How are we going to get? And there was no like, oh, we'll be fine. Nature will take care of us. Like, I really had the thought that if left to nature, we would have been in a lot of trouble in that moment because there was no way out. Until a man showed up and showed us how to climb up the cliff to get out.
Yeah. So, and I can feel it in my body I could feel my nervous system speeding up as you repeat that.
Mm.
Can you still feel that experience in your body as you retell it?
Oh, yeah. As I retell it, like it's vibrating in my chest. Oh,
yeah.
That was,
yeah.
I need to get back to safety.
Yeah. And as right from studying human development and going through a coaching program, when we have really hard experiences like that, our body and our brain does the beautiful thing to help us get through it of telling us a simple story, right? So what is that simple story that you now hold when you think about that experience?
Oh, the super simple is what I led with. Nature will try to kill you.
Yeah. And now that you've had a little bit of distance from the experience, right? It didn't kill you. You made it through. What is the benefit to you in keeping that story?
There's a question. I want to say that I think it keeps me safe in some way because it keeps me out of having to do things.
Yes.
Like my husband vowed to me at our wedding, he would never ask me to sleep in a tent. And so it reinforces that. Don't ask me to go camping. Don't ask me to go skiing. I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
Because I have this story about it.
And so it protects, it is a story that comes for good reason. You had a really hard experience in nature and it's there to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, body.
Yeah.
How could it also be limiting you?
Well, I think the way that I've conflated it, because you're not suggesting I go climb a cliff and do rock climbing. I think you're suggesting much smaller interactions that could happen in my city backyard.
So how could this be this story, which came for very good reason? How could it also now, when you are safe, be limiting you in your own evolution as a human?
Well, I think it cuts off the benefits and I don't know if magnanimousness is the right word, but that's the word that's coming to mind. And I feel very limited in my vocabulary right now, like the giant goodness.
Yeah, the awe-inducing, the research shows that part of it with nature is it's the awe-inducing. There are only so many ways in life that we can get this feeling of awe, and nature is one that brings it.
Yeah.
So can I challenge you here for a moment?
Sure.
How can we reframe what happened so that we both honor the hard experience that you had, but also create space to be able to benefit from the many proven benefits that nature can bring us mentally, physically, and spiritually?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is owning my part of it. Because right before that happened, we were having a great time. And also, I was in flip-flops that had lost any tread, and I was walking on wet rocks. So I think there's something in the preparation and the part that I own. I can't expect to wear what I would wear on a paved path in a city park out in the wild.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it.
And there's an expression that they use in the training they say people meet the trail the way they meet life. And so in some ways, the trail or going on a walk can be almost a reflection for us about how we enter life. And so what are you, as we're talking about this, what's coming to you in terms of what nature actually maybe was trying to help you see through that experience?
I don't like this suggestion because I like to think I prepare for life a little bit better than I prepared for that walk. But at its simplest form, it is important to have proper footwear, no matter what you're doing, which I rarely, rarely do. Yeah, it's funny. I'm having a really defensive reaction. How dare you? I'm gonna have to think about that. What do you
Yeah.
think it means?
I think that the forest and forest bathing has an amazing power to love us unconditionally and make us accountable and make us reflect on how we live our life. And I think it is a very personal, we take very personal and transformative messages when we spend time in nature. And only you can know what the stories are that you want to take from your time in nature. And I hope that this is encouraging you in some ways to go back into nature, right, with some of these questions. So it's okay if you don't know the answer. But the notion that nature will kill us is a really powerful statement. And the reason why it lands so hard for me, right? And I totally understand I get after an experience like that's a valid conclusion. And we are nature. We are, right? There is research to show we are all made of stardust. We are made of the same thing that nature is made of. And so if we can't feel like we belong in nature, then we have a huge opportunity. There's a huge unlock. And I really wonder what could happen for you if you go into any type of nature now, reminding yourself that you are safe. Now that you have
Mhm.
the benefit of detachment from the experience and you've started to do the work to think, okay, how is this protecting me and how is this maybe limiting me? I wonder what would happen if you went back into nature with that openness of what are you trying to tell me?
I am, because I've known you for a while and I've been taking your advice on this before we even did this podcast. Here's the big thing I've been doing. It's going to sound very small. I have a dog, and when he needs to go out to pee, typically I have a podcast in my ear. I'm looking at my phone. I'm doing my Wordle while the dog is doing whatever. And I am now making the effort to leave my phone in the house, not have headphones in, and stand there and look at the trees and the lake while the dog is doing his business. It's little, but I stop, I take a few breaths, I be in it. That's thanks to
And
you, Laura.
and how does that feel as you experiment with that within your body?
It's now such a relief to slow down for a minute because I've left my computer and all the millions of things I'm doing and to just shut off the literal noise that I was putting in my ears and to then stop and tune in to the birds and the whatever is happening
Yeah.
is starting to shut down that internal noise.
And I think the more we see nature as a way to reset our nervous system, I hope that we will stop thinking of it as wasted time.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we just take just the quiet, the slowness, if we reframe that to see it as an opportunity to strengthen our sensory awareness, you're not doing nothing. I think it will really make a huge difference in our ability to lead in the AI era, right? An age where it's just going to keep getting faster and more complicated. So, how do we take every moment we can to strengthen our ability to show up creative and in relation with one another? And I'm so happy to hear that
This
you're
is the work
doing
now.
this is the work. I think this is the work of our generation.
This is the work.
And the more that we can have those honest conversations like we're having about nature also can be scary. We live in the mountains. My son, he's a nature kid and he is very afraid of wildlife, right? He has
Hmm.
a real fear that he's going to get eaten by a mountain lion or a bear, right? Or the wolves.
That seems appropriate if they're there.
And so, and what we know about courage is, right? Courage is so important and it's about taking a risk in life, right? So if we let his story, we have this opportunity now while he's young to help him strengthen, not lose his sense of, I need to stay safe. We want that, but also to help him take calculated risk for himself, right? If you hear a wild animal, it is not, you should react, right? But the fear of
Mhm.
having the fear of nature stop you from getting out and doing things that you love, right? That is your nervous system taking over, right? So there's this combination between the experiences we have, the stories we tell ourselves, and our nervous system's ability to digest it. And we're learning more and more about these connections, but I think it's really fascinating how simple practice like forest therapy can help us show up more resilient in all areas of our life.
Can you tell me what has changed in your life since you started doing this?
My nervous system has become so much more resilient. My ability to show up creative rather than reactive has strengthened so quickly. And I had to move really slow at first to start to get faster. When I first started just trying to be with nature and just trying to just sit in it, it was really hard for me. I would feel almost like I was going to have an anxiety attack. I would be panicking.
Mm.
And so I have put a lot of thought into different ways that we can incorporate this nervous system reset into our lives. And that's the way that I look at it and implications that I think this has on leadership, and especially leadership right now in the age of AI. I think it's so important that leaders check in, right? How able am I to regulate my nervous system, to make hard decisions, to have the hard conversations, to be in community with others, discussing hard things, right? Because those are the important things right now, right? When the machines can automate and take over all those things that we just do on autopilot, right? What becomes so important is our humanity, our ability to create calm and clarity. And those are the things for me that have really strengthened. These were things that I knew in my mind are important, and I had a bit of a disconnect. And so this became a really important tool to help me unlock my creativity and my calm. One of the things
I'm
that I have done in preparation for speaking with you is I've come up with a list of simple ways that people can start to incorporate forest therapy into how they lead. Because I think that there are so many ways when we start to open our minds to how do I show up in the workplace with presence
mhm.
and clear and a little bit more clarity.
I'm listening to John Amichi's new book called It's Not Magic. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
And he is talking about in this age, the most important thing a leader can do is walk in, be calm, have a regulated nervous system. Because walking in like that as the leader, taking a deep breath, grounding, allows everyone in the room to relax and ground. You have so much influence over the room and over everyone you're leading if you can just do that piece, which sounds so simple, but actually takes work and takes practice.
Emotions are so contagious. We feel it.
Hmm.
And I didn't have words for it, but that was my experience working with so many leaders in these Fortune 500 companies who made it all the way up to the top. And then I would be in a room with them and I would start to feel really dysregulated. And so
Because even if they're faking it, you can't fake it that hard.
feeling that kind of dysregulation so often, and then feeling how confident and creative and how different I felt when I was in the room with leaders who were regulated, who were in a state of creativity, was really palpable. And so again, this is why forest therapy for me and learning about sensory processing disorder, it was like almost like a light bulb went off, right? Of wow, this is so simple and so accessible and so what our world needs.
Laura, where can
Yeah.
people find you?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me and for having this conversation, Julie, and for being open about a really hard experience that you had that I think everyone can learn from. So people can find me by going to my website. It is just calocedrus.com. So Calocedrus is the scientific name for the incense cedar, which flourish at our retreat property in the Sierra Nevada mountains. So it's just calocedrus.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I am just Laura London, CEO of Calocedrus Partners. Or if you can't remember any of those and you just want an easy cheat, you can go to bigloveleadership.com. And that will bring you to my website and my philosophy on leadership.
Okay. Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been Deep Work Out Loud. I'm Julie Harris Oliver. I'd like to thank Laura London for joining the podcast. If any of this resonates with you, please subscribe, leave a review in all the podcast places, share it with your friends. If you'd like to work with me, you can find me at julieharrisoliver.com. And let me leave you with this invitation. What might it look like for you to spend some time in nature? Just try one thing. Do the thing where you walk outside and you count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 using all your senses. Try some things. Report back. Thanks for listening. See you next time.